Hi everyone, welcome back. It's been a while. Thanks for sticking around. Today we are going to be painting three types of evergreen trees, or three evergreen trees with different textures of snow, because winter is just around the corner, especially where I'm at. It's already been snowing. But I am back and I'm so excited that you are here joining me today. Colors I'm going to be using are from Deep Light Watercolors. This is in forest green, my favorite color of theirs so far. And if you haven't seen my video on Deep Light Watercolors, I will go ahead and link it in the top upper right hand corner. But here are the three trees with different textures of snow, and I hope you enjoy them. As always, I use a spray bottle, and I like to spray my paper first. And I am showing you how I am getting my paint and then how much water I use, because I know that you guys have mentioned that and how helpful it is. So I have been able to get it in my frame. And as always with my tree, I start with a trunk. And I'm using a size 2 Velvet Touch long round brush. I really love these brushes. If you've been here a while, you know. I love how thin it is, how fine of a tip it is, and my brushes are frayed and destroyed, and I think they make the perfect trees. Now, when it comes to my brush strokes, I'm a little bit all over the place. I like to work them towards the trunk, and then I will go from the trunk outwards. I really just play around, and you'll have to figure out what works best for you, because there's no correct formula in how to create a tree. If you go out in the wild, you'll see that trees look different and they're not perfectly symmetrical or anything like that. So have fun with playing with your branches and bristles. And that's why I also spray my paper, is because when the paint hits those little droplets, it spreads out. But because I'm using a spray bottle, the mist is so fine that it's not ideally going to spread everywhere. But you'll also need to play around with that, because it will depend on how much you spray. I usually will spray about 3 times, but I'm also not very close to my paper. Just letting you know. And of course you want to add a little bit of trunk details. And here's a close-up with this paint, the forest green. It has lots of texture. It's an earth pigment. The company is from Latvia. I mean, it's just beautiful. Now, I will study my tree, look at it a little bit, and figure out what I want to do. For this first tree, I wanted to focus on adding in droplets of water. Now, each paint is different, so when you add droplets of water, it's going to push the paint away, and each pigment will react differently with the water. This one doesn't move as much as other paints, but I'm okay with that. So I just went ahead and decided to lift a little bit of the paint, move it around, and take the excess and dab it on a paper towel. And the reason I did this is because, one, I know these paints. I've been painting with them for a few months now. But when you move this paint around with extra water in there, you're going to get even more texture, and you can already see the paint working its magic. I think that's what I love so much about earth pigments specifically, is you get this texture in there, and I really love that. And what better way to have texture than in a tree? And then I add a little bit more water. I just continue to play with it. But you'll notice that, and you can see on that brush, it's not too much. But I like to add in lots of texture and keep the tree fairly wet so it can continue to form its own little world. I don't know how to describe it, but the paint just changes. And you see I also added in even more droplets of more pigment, just to bring a little bit more color back into it. And you'll see as it dries, it kind of changes. Now I'm adding into the forest green, I'm adding in Holbein Payne's Gray. And so for this tree, I wanted it to be just ever so slightly darker, less green, a little bit more moodier, a little bit bluer. And I love adding Payne's Gray. Now, my focus, amateur move here, did not go well because I'm moving a lot and I tried to get close-ups, and anyway, I lost a lot of footage, so I'm so sorry about that. But the tail end of this tree, what I'm doing is exactly what I did to the top. I'm just changing the direction of the branches, so I am so sorry. But with this tree, it's the same, I guess, formula of how I did the first tree. I work my way from the outwards into the branch, and then from the center of the tree back out. It's really, like I said, there's no formula. It's just kind of, playing with the bristles. I do have a couple of tree tutorials. I'll link them below. I'll also link them in the upper right hand corner. If you want to save those, go look at them. It's an idea of how you can play with your branches and just different movements of your brush. So now, if the paint gets away from you a little bit, like mine did here, I just take my paper towel, wet it a little bit, and then just dab it away. And then I go back in with some paint and fix it. But it's not a big deal. I'm going over these trees again with snow and snowflakes, so it's really not, too big of a deal. All right, so now the color of choice for snow is the PH Martin's Bleed Proof White. I've talked about this many times. I love this stuff. It's great. And I'm dropping it into my tree. My tree is wet. You can continue spraying it, not too close. If you do, then it will feather and go everywhere. But if that's what you're after, do it. But that's not what I'm after for this tutorial. So I'm dropping in some directly from the actual, container, the paint, but because it's wet, it's feathering out, so it's not as strong. That's why it looks lighter. As it slowly starts to dry, I go back in over the top of it, of the white area, and add in more to just make it a bit darker. But this is more of soft snow and crystallized snow, and this is perfect for if you want crystals in your water to form ice. I absolutely love this technique. Highly recommend giving it a go. All right, spraying my third tree now. And this one, I also lost a little bit of the footage due to it not focusing. I am so sorry. I decided to keep the unfocused scenes in here just so you can kind of see what I'm doing, because you can see I did not do a full trunk. I only did half of it. I'm doing the same technique as I did in the first two trees. If you really want to study that, just go back to the first tree, and I've done the same thing, honestly. But the very half of the tree, the last half of this tree, you will see exactly what I'm doing and how I start to form the base of the tree without having that center line. I highly recommend giving this a go because you can create a different style of tree, and it gives you more room than feeling like you need to focus on the center of the tree. I'm probably not explaining it very well, but it allows you to make it thicker and, in my opinion, look a bit more, I don't want to say realistic, but you can get those thicker centers of the tree, where when you look at an evergreen tree, you see pine needles coming towards you, and that can be a bit difficult to do in art because if you have a center line, you kind of focus on just the left and the right, not the center. So this allows you to kind of get different textures. As you can see what I'm doing here, it gives a lot of life to the tree, and this is a very, in my mind, traditional looking holiday tree, if you will. A very thick and happy tree. And I didn't mention, but I've added even more Payne's Gray, so it's even darker. And you can see how wet my tree is. And I do spray it I'm not very close, but I want to keep it a little bit wet because I want the pigment to move around a little bit, do its own magic for me. I think that's a trick if you're new to watercolor, is letting it do its thing. It's a bit hard, but yeah. As you can see, these have dried, and look at the texture. I love it. I love it. Look at the texture. It's great. Here's another tree that I have done. You can make it a bit skinnier. You don't have to have a very symmetrical tree. And then I've added snow and snowflakes. And then another tree I've done where I've lifted the trunk out using the lifting method. I will show that in a future video, though if you've seen my tutorials, you've seen it before. And now I'm adding the final details to the last tree. I know people in the past have mentioned that I talk too much. I'm sorry about that, but I do want to give you instructions on what I'm doing. But let me know, would you rather have a more quiet video, or do you like me going through each step that I'm talking you through? I know talking for 15 minutes is a lot. I totally know. It is a bit exhausting for me, but I do want to let you know what I'm doing. All right, let me know in the comments below. So I've taken the lightest bit of the bleed proof white. You can see how light it is. It's almost transparent. Now I like to build up my snow. I don't want to glob it right on there because it might just get carried away and I might lose my tree, and I don't want to lose the texture of my tree. So I like to do the same type of motions with the branches as I did in the first base layer. I like to do that with the softer white, and then I will go over it with thicker paint or stronger pigment. So you can see how soft that is. It's very soft, and I really like doing this because I feel like it gives me layers and depth to the tree. So now it's a bit thicker, it's a bit stronger, and the paint is still wet, so that stronger white will kind of just naturally blend into it, but it's not going to lose its strength, if that makes sense. You'll also notice that I bounce around. I like to bounce around. I like to take a step back. I like to look at it and study it and kind of figure out the balance of where the snow is. And as you can see, you might need to add more over the ones you've already laid down because it might dry a little bit too soft or spread a little bit too much. It really just depends on how wet your tree is. And that's just something you're going to have to experience for yourself and test out your own techniques and what you personally like in your own tree and style. Even though I'm covering up a lot of the tree, you could still see lots of texture behind it. And this is a really great way to give yourself those really strong, heavy clumps of snow in some of the trees you might find in different regions of the world. Like, say, Finland, for example. Some of the trees there get so much snow that you might only see tiny little specks of green. I also wanted to point out, I do bend my watercolor paper. I do this because I feel like it kind of helps flatten it. You don't have to do this. I do a lot of things that I'm sure is very cringy to a lot of watercolor artists, but it's just what I do. Now, the very last thing, I use the Deerfoot brush, and it has an angle, and I go ahead and sprinkle on snow. I did quite a bit of snow for that middle tree since I didn't directly add in snow, but I wanted to show you what I do there. And here are the 3 trees. I so hope you guys enjoyed this video and that you enjoy painting snowy covered trees as well, or snow covered trees as well. And I'm so glad to be back, and it's been a hot minute. I've been away, I've been traveling, I've been sick a couple times, and I moved. So lots of things happening in my personal life, good things, but just just things that have taken me away from filming. But I have a collection of videos that I would like to do that I've never gotten around to, so stay tuned, and I look forward to seeing you in my next video. Be sure to like and subscribe, and I will talk soon. All right, take care, my friends. Bye.